I was going to talk about change. The difficulty, John Maynard Keynes said, the difficulty lies not so much in developing new ideas as in escaping the old ones. We have difficulty letting go of the things we know. We think we are a species that evolves, that is adaptive. That's why we're different than the other animals. We're tool using. We adopt technologies. But in fact, through most of our history as a species, this kind of change has come remarkably slowly. In our DNA, we're not built for change. We're bred for stasis. When you think about it, until a couple of centuries ago, every person on this planet did the same thing that their parents did in the same place that their parents did it. We're not used to change. People do not like change. We want to get up in the morning, we want to know where we're going to go, what we're going to do, and when we're going to come home. I am a mutant, a genetic mutation. I actually thrive on uncertainty and chaos. And unfortunately, many mutants don't survive. I mean, in the land of natural selection, people like me, if I could be in a different city every morning, every day, for the entire year, I'd be happy. You know, but a number of millennia ago, somebody who had my kind of mutation, who loved that, and too often strayed off too far from the village, that mutation would die off. Interestingly, we now are in a period of technological change that is so rapid that people like me can be protected and, in fact, sometimes thrive. Even for me, I started out very typically, the first 40 years of my life were quite patterned. I did what I thought my parents and society expected of me for 40 years. I worked hard. I went to good schools. I got jobs at good companies, rose through the ranks. Ultimately, I found myself at 40 running a public company with 5,000 employees. I hated it. And more importantly, I wasn't any good at it. And so sometimes a little bit of self-awareness, even if it's late in life, can be a very valuable thing. So I took a right turn into ambiguity. In the past 20 years, I've been doing lots of things at once, serving on 9 different public boards, but starting 9 different financial technology and cybersecurity companies. You know, some were successful, some were not. All roller coasters, some overlapping, different times, some would be up, some would be down, and I loved it. It drove my wife crazy. It would drive most people crazy, but I happen to have this mutation where I'm like a sunflower to the sun. I just love this stuff. One observation I have is that it's very difficult to do transformational change if you've done the same thing for 20 years. I mean, you can be smart, well-meaning, work hard, be creative, but still, if you've done the same thing for 20 years, you have these mental blinders on. And it's just difficult to imagine something that is not the way that you've become used to it. At the same time, transformational change does not come from people who have no view of the problem whatsoever. It does come from people who are adjacent, who are close enough to the problem to see it, but not completely invested in the problem so that they can think in new ways. So for me, what I've tried to do, partly circumstance, partly intentional, is keep things new, always be looking with new eyes. And so I've been lucky. In the past 30 years in this field, we've gone, you know, the technologies have changed very rapidly. We've gone from desktop to web to mobile to voice. And I've also been able to change businesses, tax software, accounting software, payments, identity management, portfolio management, vending, software authentication, hardware authentication. wealth management, and now my new thing is banking. Never done banking before. And there's pluses and minuses of diving into something like banking. I'm not a banker. I've never done it before. And I embarrass myself sometimes with how little I know. On the other hand, I can think about it with fresh eyes. And for me, that's very valuable. You know, if you think about how people work, how people contribute to the society, I'll identify 3 different broad modes, running from high to low in terms of their likelihood of success. And of course, the highest is people who do the same thing. Most people do the same thing. It's operations. It's what makes the economy run. It's what makes the society go forward. We do the things that we know work. Some do the same thing better. This is optimization. This is efficiency. This is making those things that we know that much more efficient, that much more productive for society. And a few do a better thing, or more precisely, try to do a better thing, because the likelihood of success when you're trying to do a better thing is low. Most startups fail. Most great ideas, or most ideas, some are great, some are not, never even get to the startup phase. There's high mortality. There's also, we cannot afford to have large portions of the productive members of society working on these experiments. And so that's why it's fully appropriate that most people do the same thing, and a few try to see if we can experiment on the edges. But if we do achieve a better thing, and it does work, what are we doing it for? I mean, yes, we may be able to start some companies that are profitable and benefit personally. But more importantly, if we're trying to do a better thing, we should be trying to do it, we should be trying to do it in order to help people. And of course, in financial technology, there's an incredible opportunity to do this, because over the past decade and looking into the future decade, when we take technology and merge it with money, we can get huge increases in access across the globe, and at the same time, dramatic decreases in price. If we can do that to something as important as money across the 7 billion people who inhabit this planet, wow, what a great thing we've done. And of course, there are 2 ways to try and stimulate this. One is to build new companies that help people, which is what I do. And the other thing, just as important, if not more so, is to invest in new companies that help people. And that, I believe, is what our next panel is going to talk to. And so I will say thank you and give it to them. Many thanks.